Hello, welcome to the third session of Learning with PMWds Swollen. We are still diving into Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming in Python. This is part 2. Alright, as we said that we are going to look at some more examples of object-oriented programming. So we are still with some examples, and we have basically these three examples. The first example that we said we are going to create, it is required that we create a class called the book. We create a class called the book, and the class, we said that in a UML diagram it should always look in this manner. Create a class called book.py with attributes title, author, and the year. So in designing, just put attributes. We know what attributes are, and they are the one that we're trying to design, so that when we start in IDE, we don't have to be troubling ourselves. So attribute first, which is required, is called the title. The second is author. The third, it is year. And from there, include the method get information that returns a formatted string with book details. So the book details are these details we are going to concatenate in the get information method, right? So the book, where they have said get info method, we're going to create this method called get info. Yeah, every time we are creating class, mind you, there is this special type of method called int, which initiate, I like calling it as a constructor, a method that is directly called when an object is called, right? It's the one that you must always recognize. And we pointed out that everything here comes in this initiate method. It comes to be defined in there in the initiate method. All right, shall we continue in an IDE? So they have told us to create a class called a book. A book. So book.py. Yeah. So the first part of this class is going to have an attribute called title. Even before we do that, a class, the first part of a class is a class name. Which is the class name? It's called a book, right? Yeah, we are done with that first part of the rectangular part of a UML class diagram, which usually have a class name. The second part are the variables. So in defining these variables, we said they always come to stay in the initiate method, right? So they come into the initiate method and we pass them as parameters, where we'll start with title, we go with author, and we go with year. Yeah, I just, having done that, we are going to create a self parameter called a self keyword, and we said that we are going to explain what this really means. I think this will be the time to explain what a self keyword really means in object creation, right? So we will continue doing this boring stuff as naming of these variables. As we say, title belongs to title. Yeah, and we said we don't want to be confusing ourselves. So title, I'll be like that, so that you recognize that they are pointing to those variables. Then self, these variables I'm creating are the ones that we pointed A, are the ones that have in the keyword self when starting, are the ones we really care about. Sure. Then this author attribute is equal to auth, something like that. Self attribute, which is here, is equal to yeah. Yeah, just like that. Okay. From there, we create a method that we have been told, which is doing what? A method which is getting the information about this book. It's one that we are going to create here. And the name of the method is called get info. Get info. Def get info. And remember the question was specified that uh, that returns formatted string with book details. So we just have to format that string, right? It's about it will be returning a formatted string. So we are just say return this. Please return this. So this formatted string is going to return the following. So this get info is going to return a formatted string. Here is where we practice different ways of printing things or different ways of concatenating variables. Therefore, we're going to say title. So like book details. Then we would love to have an escape sequence so that the next uh, string will be developed in the next line. Therefore, we indicate that book title will be what? Self dot title. Then the next output should be developed in the next line, and we'll say author. Author will be self dot author. Okay. Lastly, we also like the output, the last line to be the next session, and we'll say uh, date published. Then we'll put date published, we'll put self dot year. Okay, that was what was required in the question. So let's see the last part of this question. They've told us create through 3 book objects and display their information. I would love to illustrate this part here. 3 book objects, and in the customer class we saw how we create object, or we say we illustrate how to create object. So we are going to say book 1 is equal to the book class. We pass the constructor parameters as we have explained over this. So again, we are going to create book 2. We pass the parameter with different information of the book. Then we are going to say book 3. We'll also pass the different information about this. So all these will be realized in the what? In the memory or in the main method. In the main method. Remember, book 1 is coming from one book design. It's a book design which is creating 3 objects. It's a book design which is creating 3 objects. So the first object is book 1, the second book 2, the third book 3. From one design, we are able to create these objects. These objects. These are objects created from one design. Sure. Shall we go into practice? Yeah. So here we have to create another method, which is a main method in order to run the program, because as it is a book.py class, book can't run a program. It's not a program, it's just a design, right? Yeah. In the last example, which was customer.py, we went further to create a main method in a customer program. But we are not limited to create a program in the same file. So we just have to create a file called the main method, then call the object and create object. So the first object we're going to create is called book 1. Object 1, which is book 1 is equal to book. Then we pass the parameter. We know that this book has got a constructor which must receive this thing as always. So what would you like to give the title of this book? What would you like to give the title of this book? It's called Python. Who's the author? John Gone. And the year it was published, 2023. This is a first book. So they said that we have to create 3 objects. So the second object will be book 1, as we described there. To reference book. Yeah. A house may have the same design, but what will be contained in the house will be different. So this book 2, like a second house or a second book, will have its own thing. Maybe, for example, Java, author Tony. Here it was published 2002. All right. Then the last object, which is object 3, will be called book 2. Yeah. So book 2 will copy from the reference, the book 2 be created from the same design called the book, and we pass the parameters, different things that will be contained in this book. So we may have a book called the C# author CBO team. Then we have a year 2026. By the way, and the year is an integer, so even if I put it that way, or this way to be printed out. Okay, and there will be no error on that. Then after we create this book, there is a book class has got a method that is getting the information about the book, which is get info, right? Get info. So it's the one that we are going to demonstrate this side. So each book is going to print its own information, right? Yeah, will be like print book one dot get info. Yeah, we have called this method from a blueprint. We know that a blueprint has got a special method. I was created with a method which is get info. Same applies to the list or the books. Same applies to the list or the books. So book two, just imagine book one, which is that book, is getting the information about itself, and then also book two is getting the information about itself, and also book three will get information about itself. Let's see the behavior of this. After we are done, this is the main method, right, that we described. So we just have to call this main method at once. Then we'll see the behavior of this thing. Therefore, we're going to type Python book.py, and let's see the behavior of these three objects that are created from one design. Okay. Therefore, we have an error. An indent does not match an outer indentation level. So, which is this part. Python is case sensitive. Okay, shall we start again? My bad. Which is this one? So indentation must be okay. Let's try it. Book 3 is not defined. Said book 3. Therefore, now let's see the behavior of this. We're just going to type Python book.py and run the program. Okay, wow, see what it things has been brought in. So we printed book one, which is this one, got the information about Python. This is the detail. Book one details, title Python, John Gone, dates published 2023. Book two, which is this one, it's having Java, author Tony Gaddis, and published in 2002. Book 3, as we pass the values there, it also has its own information, C#, CBU team. So these are objects which were created. These are the object results which were created from one single class. Therefore, I hope we have understood this example. You have understood this part. So I believe we can move on to the next question about an instance methods. Design rectangle class with attribute length, width, and methods to calculate area, perimeter, and determine if rectangle is a square. Create test objects to demonstrate all methods. Test object, that means we're going to create more than one object. So before even go further, we can use PMW's method of first knowing what we want to do before coding. And the design of this thing I think it doesn't really take much of your time. Even if you are asking an exam, you can firstly design this class. So we are designing an instance of the method that's going to have what is being asked. It will be good for now. You can practice every question. You can imagine to first create a class diagram and observe the result. As you get used, you'll stop doing this. So rectangle.py, and we have been told attribute length and width. We are going to have attribute length, another attribute width, and method to calculate area, perimeter, and stemming if the rectangle is a square. Okay, we said that the third part of the class is where we come to have methods. So the first method to calculate area to be area. Remember, every class always has an initiate method, a constructor. Okay. Then we also have a perimeter. A method, also another method which is determining if the rectangle is a square. So we can name this method that is determining if the rectangle is a square or not. So we name it shape type. So we're going to create this class called rectangle.py with the following things that we have described. Sure. Let's dive into. Okay. I'll create class A rectangle.py. Okay. Then I'll define a class called rectangle. Be careful on the naming convention. The name of the file versus the name of the class, they must be different. It's not the error if they are the same, but it's important you recognize that part. Okay, we are told that we should create the length and the width of the rectangle, and we have been saying that every class has got an initiation or a constructor that we must always be passing. Okay, and the attribute which is called length and width. Okay, we have been talking so much about self method. A self method, now it's time that I explained it explicitly without saying that we are going to be explaining it. So allow me to explain this method called this keyword called self that is passed in every method of a class. Remember, right? Yeah. So the behavior of this method, the meaning of this self method, is just simply says that it just simply points to an object. Since we are saying an object knows about itself, an object knows about itself, true or false? Simply, a human being is an object. And then we say that an object contains method, that is functions, and data attribute, right? A method contains function and data. A human being, human being is made up of various methods or actions that a human being can perform. A human being can walk, Human being can eat, they can see, right? They can also greet someone. That is the function of the human being. Imagine this human being is an object and it has different function. That means method the human being performs. Yeah. So now the issue is about data. The functions that the human being performs is actually made up of different data that makes that function to be done. For example, walking. For someone to walk, there must be some sort of nerves, veins, bones. Imagine all these are data, the attribute that forms up the function to perform walking. Yeah, something like that. That is a human being. So when you say self, I was explaining self, that means it just says that a method initiates knows about its object. That means the method working, right? The method working knows about its object. For me to walk or for the leg to perform its function, it knows to where it is attached. I hope you understand that. It knows where it is attached. It knows where it's found. It can't exist on its own. That's how every method we have been creating, we have been putting self, right? We have been putting self. Every time that we create object, we simply say that this get method, it should know to what object it's working on. And the object it's working on, it's a class, which usually forms up an object. We say that class book, right? So we are saying that every book must implement the keyword self, which actually describes the object it will be attached to. So the self says that this method get info knows about its object. Should I go further? This is how I can go in terms of explaining self, right? I've explained object is made up of method and data helps to complete the function of a method. Like we gave an example of a leg. It contains a lot of features for it to perform the walking part. Sure. Now, shall we move? Seeing that I've explained what self means. Okay. So we continue with the rectangle class that we said that is going to have width is equal to width. Okay. Self length is equal to length. Now I'll be putting this. Me, I like doing this so that we really understand. In the next coming future, when you get to use, then this length will be completing like width will complete. But for now, we must understand that these are instance variables that we are practicing. They are part of the rectangle class. And these are just parameters that are going to be exposed outside the class, When they are exposed, they are expected to pass the argument. That's the constructor I'm talking of. Sure. Now, in this exercise, we were told to calculate area. So area of a rectangle. So area of a rectangle, return, we know how to calculate area of a rectangle just by saying self dot width times self dot length. just like that. So this is just basically method that is returning the area. I hope you mathematicians, this is how they calculate the area of a rectangle. Just we usually say length times width, something like that. We are also taught to calculate the perimeter. We are told also to calculate the perimeter, and we know the formula of perimeter shouldn't be an issue on that. So what is the perimeter of a triangle? It's just the total length around the edge of a rectangle. And we'll just say, since we are trying to calculate the total length is equal to self dot width multiply self dot length. Then we put them in a bracket. We put them in the brackets, then we multiply them by 2. That is simple way of calculating the perimeter of a rectangle. Then we just say return total. Total. Total what? Total perimeter of a rectangle. And the last method that we are told is to calculate or to determine if a rectangle is a square or not. And in the design class, this method as we called this method as shape type. Remember, we just described from what is known as self. So if you just create a method without a keyword self, that means that method is called a static method, or that method is not really part of that rectangle. It can be accessed by anything, right? Yeah, but we have to put this without even forgetting. So this this uh, shape type is determined if the rectangle is a square or not. So we know a square has got equal side, right? Yeah, a rectangle doesn't have equal side. So you just have to compare the width and the length if they have the same equal side. If not, then the shape is a rectangle, but not a square. That is if self dot length equals self dot width. Then uh, return what? Rectangle. If they are the same, return square. Square. Else return rectangle. Hope that is okay. And the last part that we are told, we were asked to create test object to demonstrate all methods. My bad. I hope that isn't intensive. Yeah. So now we're going to create objects to demonstrate this. Yeah. And we say all object runs in the main method. Yeah. So object one house room. Usually this house is rectangle shaped, something like that, is equal to rectangle, and we pass the variables, the first at the length, right, the constructed length, and the other at width. So length of that room, maybe it is 6 by 3, right? 6 by 3. Then the second room 2 is going to have rectangle is going to have 4 by 4. Okay, now it's time we tested this method. So then we're trying to call area to calculate the area of the house room. Dot area. So since it is returning, we can assign it to a variable, but right now we just want to print house room area, then print room 2 dot area. So let's actually decorate the code. House room area. House room area. Then we also going to have room 2 area. Okay, after doing so, we can even print out and we know the result, and we can even print the perimeter of this room. But for now, we also want just to determine the shape type. So be like room, house room dot shape type. Print sorry there, print shape type of room 2, room 2 dot shape type. And we see that room 2 has got 4 by 4, but so we expect the result to be a square based on our logic in implementation of shape type. So we'll just say house room shape. Okay, hope we don't have any problems in there. Let's illustrate. Let's illustrate this in the program. Okay, so if there are no errors in there after we scan the program, then we have to learn it. We'll say Python rectangle.py and demonstrate what we just did. All right, look at these out. In line 26, we said house room area dot house room of instance variable dot get area, and we said it has brought 18. And room 2 area, this one, it has brought 16. And house room shape, it is what we said that house room shape, house room dot shape, it has brought rectangle. Why? Because this the width and the length are different. But for room 2, the width and the length are the same, so it has brought shape type to be square. And therefore, we can even print out the perimeter that we had calculated and other things. Thank you for watching, and I've left this part as your thing to do, and please give feedback. The file that I've created, it will be attached to this video while it will be sent. All right, thank you for watching, and in the next video we're going to be looking at static method.